Hi, I'm Tommy Nyman, and I'm a firefighter, paramedic, also as a chaplain. And I have been working in fire rescue for almost 33 years. My ministry that God has given me is called Sirens for the Cross. And it's just based on a book I wrote, sharing just many of the calls where I've seen God work in some powerful ways. I had a lot of calls in my past as a firefighter and paramedic that I could really share how God moved on scenes. And there's certainly some calls that we go on where I see some of my guys looking at a child that was just been snuffed out in a horrible way, or a family that's lost 2 members in a tragic car accident. There's no doubt that there's a lot of stress, especially on the scenes where something just critically has happened in someone's life. And whether their house is on fire and we need to go in and try to rescue someone, or on an emergency scene involving a traffic accident or a stabbing or a shooting or whatever occurs out there, that there's a need. And to be able to share with those guys that they can still have peace, and that peace being in none other than a relationship with Christ, and to know that they can turn that over to Him. The first thing is to pray for them, and then to just look for avenues and doors that God would open, whether it's just being with guys doing yard work at the station, or riding with them back from the calls, or just being on scenes after the incident has been taken care of. And those guys really having a moment where they ask some questions, and God clearly opens the door to be able to share with them about the peace they can have despite what they've just seen. Some of the most memorable moments, not in necessarily good ways for the family, but in very intimate ways, as far as those last few breaths that a person would take when I'm doing everything I can to save that life. Those cases where they don't make it. I just pray that in those last moments they made the most critical decision if they were able to hear. And had a really interesting heart attack victim we took in, and I really thought after we turned him over to the ER was going to pass on, because we didn't get a heartbeat despite all our efforts. We had to go out on another call and never went back to the hospital that day on any other calls. I would find out a couple years later that that particular guy remembered me praying over him and had run into one of the other responders on our crew that day and said, "Hey, I remember the guy that was praying over me while they were doing CPR on me." And he was able to recognize that crew member despite his unconscious state. And of course, when I got word of that, it was truly a blessing to know that, you know, people do have that moment where you may think they're gone, but they're still leaving their body. Their spirit, which we know lives eternally, was very much responsive. I truly believe the mission that God has given me is to just reach fellow responders with the realization that, first of all, we need the ultimate responder in Jesus Christ. There's no doubt about it. We can save a lot of lives physically, but eventually physical lives do die. And our need of the eternal rescuer in Jesus Christ for eternity is clear to see. And my mission is really to make that truth known, but also to my fellow first responders that are professing, believing children of God, that are Christ-centered with their life and their walk, that they would realize that even through their jobs as emergency responders, God can use them spiritually. And to call those guys and girls that respond in that emergency fashion to know that God can open doors to them to be spiritual responders as well as physical responders.